fascinating story. I'm always intrigued, what seemingly started out as I started a business and I fell into kind of construction. And then you kind of had this, fork in the road sitting in a hospital bed with, anxiety and realizing, hey, my habits are, and sending me to an early grave if things continue. Right. And
Yeah.
so how did you kind of like, obviously you had a very traumatic event that caused you to kind of pick your head up and look elsewhere. So other than before we jump into real estate, even though this is a real estate focused podcast, I'm curious kind of the run the business piece because, I think there's a lot of people out there, myself included in this until recently, where you start a business thinking that you're an entrepreneur and maybe you've got yourself as the only employee, or you've got like you've got 10, but literally if you stop, the business stops. And if you don't manage everything, nothing happens, right? So how did you kind of start to implement things into your business to have it run as effectively while you're not, managing everything?
Yeah. Well, so my dad taught me, it's like you do it yourself because you do it the best, right? And it's just an old mentality that doesn't teach you business necessarily. I learned lots of skills from my dad, of course,
Yeah.
but I didn't know how to run people or keep them accountable. And your biggest fear, I think, when you're breaking into that, you're like, hey, I'm going to have to hire somebody. Well, how many people is it going to take to replace you? Is it 6? Is it 3? Is it 2? And it really depends how much you're willing to pay, because you're going to lose margin. Like when you make that flip, you're going to lose margin right away, because you're going to have to figure out how to keep them accountable. What is their role? What do you want them to focus on? Is it everything, or is it just one thing? You know what I mean? And so that was the hardest part, because I started not making as much money as I was used to, right? Because I was doing everything. I mean, it just made sense. And so, but I knew that I had to. So I started hiring key people. I started paying more money for people, finding people for my weaknesses. I just identified what I was weak at, and it was project manage it. I don't like to sit and do scheduling and do all this, tedious work on the computer. I hired that. I was actually better in the field than I was anything. And so I knew that. So I just hired the pieces around me. I brought in my wife at that point. She left her job, so we were really reliant on this business.
Yeah, you were all in.
Yeah, she did the finances, and she is very, analytical and very good with people. So she could hire. She was our HR. So I just started surrounding myself with these people with my week, my strength was running the field and driving work. And so, and I started picking up the pieces. And then if you fast forward from like 2017 to 2020, we really dove all into EOS. And so we actually started developing a board, and EOS was the only reason that I was able to, triple my business from 2020 to 2023 even. And I can leave for, I could die today, and at least I know that the company will take care of itself. My wife is not running the business. She's not even in the day-to-day business anymore.
Yeah.
And, I spend 1 to 2 hours at that construction company today.